Bristol, being a larger city, has a bigger railway network than Bath, and therefore a more complex railway history. The first railway line into Bristol was the Great Western Railway line from Bath, which opened in 1840 and ran into a much smaller Bristol Temple Meads. A year later, the Bristol and Exeter Railway reached Bristol Temple Meads, initially using the same platforms, but later building their own alongside the original GWR platforms. 3 years later, in 1844, the Bristol and Gloucestershire Railway opened, which was then claimed by the Midland Railway a year later. In 1863, the Bristol and South Wales Union Railway opened, extending the existing railway north of Bristol Temple Meads in the direction of Wales. 4 years later, a new branch line opened from Bristol Temple Meads to Portishead. 2 years after this, in 1869, the Midland Railway extended from Mangotsfield down to Bath Green Park, and a year later they opened their own terminus, Bristol St Phillips. This was much smaller than Bristol Temple Meads, and was only really used by services from Bath. A new Great Western Railway branch line opened in 1873, the Bristol and North Somerset Railway. This branch line linked Bristol with the towns of Radstock and Frome, and also joined up with the Camerton branch line, which ran from Limpley Stoke near Bath. A year later, in 1874, the Clifton Extension Railway was built, and was served by both the Midland and Great Western Railway. After 3 years, this railway was linked to an existing railway line called the Bristol Port Railway and Pier. I will cover the history of this line in a later video. Whilst both Midland and GWR trains could now run all the way up to Avonmouth, only GWR services did. Jumping into the 20th century, and in 1910 the Henbury Loop line opened. It ran from Avonmouth and rejoined the line from Temple Meads at Filton. In 1924, the line from Avonmouth was extended to Severn Beach and beyond to Pilning. Sadly, the closures began in 1953. Bristol St Philip's Station closed due to the bombing of the surrounding area in World War II, and all the Midland Railway trains used Bristol Temple Meads. In 1959, the Bristol and North Somerset Railway closed to passengers, and then in 1964 both the Portishead and Henbury Loop lines closed to passengers due to the beaching cuts. 1 year after this, the Midlands Railway connection to Clifton closed, and then a year later, the entire Midland Railway to Mangotsfield and Bath closed to passengers. In 1971, the Midland Railway closed to goods as well. But in 1972, Bristol Parkway station opened. In 1981, the Portishead Railway closed entirely, apart from the small spur to Ashton Gate, which was used occasionally for events. This, however, only lasted for 3 years. But then in 2002, the Portishead Railway reopened again for freight up to Portbury. And this is where we are at today. However, under a major scheme known as Metro West, both the Henbury Loop line and Portishead lines are looking to be reopened to passengers, with Ashley Hill Station reopening as well.